Happy holidays, everyone. Stephen Asma here, and we've got a special holiday encore for you. We're bringing back our live episode from Brooklyn with the one and only Paul Rudd. That was a really fun episode. We had great interaction with the audience. We had the two Pauls, Paul Giamatti and Paul Rudd, both great storytellers, and I believe we learned some fascinating facts about their childhoods and their greatest fears. So wherever you're tuning in from, kick back, relax, unless you're driving, of course, then don't kick back and relax. In that case, stay vigilant and enjoy the show.
Thank you, Brooklyn. This is a beautiful place. Look at this place. The Murmur Theater in Brooklyn. How beautiful. This is the Chinwag, by the way. Hello. For everybody who listens to the Chinwag. This is my colleague, Professor Stephen Asma of Columbia College in Chicago, a doctor of philosophy. We have a special guest, obviously, here today who needs very little introduction. My friend Paul Rudd. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you, Paul.
So we are here. It's getting to be spooky season, we figure. It's sort of the creepy time, Scorpio season. It's all kind of dark and creepy. So we thought we'd talk about fear and phobias and things like that, and things that give us the willies and things.
Yeah, there's a big difference between fear and phobia, and we want to ask Paul sort of what were the things that he was afraid of, and what are the things that he has phobias about. And fear, we know, is kind of rational. You know, you've been bitten by a dog, you're going to be afraid of it. You're afraid of crashing planes and so forth. But phobia is like more irrational and more strange and more debilitating. So
I'd never even thought of the difference, doctor. Thank you.
Already learned something.
Do general fears ever morph into phobias? I sometimes think about when I was young, I had really intense fears.
They can start as a normal fear, but then it sort of spirals out of control and you can't stop thinking about it. And you used to be able to function in your life, but then the clown thing means...
The clown thing. Oh, shit, the clown thing. But my question is, if you're that little, how can you tell? You don't know if it's rational. You're not thinking to yourself. It's always irrational when you're that little, right? I was very afraid of bugs when I was a kid. And I mean, to the point that anything I even felt looked like a bug made me just shit my pants. And I had to be, and actually one time, I didn't shit my pants, but I had to be slowly lowered into a warm bath in order to relax my body. Because I got into a kind of rictus of fear when I saw something on the ground that wasn't even a bug. I don't know what it was, but I thought it was a bug. So at that, okay. But at that point, you don't know. I mean, at that point, it's always irrational, kind of, when you're that little.
Yeah. The first two dreams I think I can never really remember. My first memories of nightmares, one involved somebody like a skeleton kind of thing. It was very, very tall.
Right.
That was hanging at the edge of my bed, which sounds scary as I describe it.
Yeah.
And then the other one I had was I was at a grocery store and my mom was buying a carton of eggs, or there was a carton of eggs going through the aisle, and I knew that I couldn't turn the carton of eggs over because on the underside was Frankenstein's face.
On the underside of the carton of eggs?
Of the carton of eggs. So I was like, I'm not touching it.
Was this a recurring nightmare?
That was not a recurring nightmare. I did have a recurring nightmare. The recurring nightmare always happened in a grocery store, actually.
Interesting.
And I understand why I had that recurring nightmare, which was when I was in first grade. I was invited to a birthday party. This kid, Curtis, and his mom took all the boys from the class to a park, and we were all playing, and I was like, they had an old caboose, like a train I'm playing on. I was looking around, I'm like, where is everybody from the party, all my friends? And I realized like no one was there.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know anybody. And then I started crying.
Yeah.
And some nice woman came over to me and said, is everything okay? I said, I was at a birthday party and everyone left. And so she was able to, she called my mom. My mom then called the woman who was having the birthday party for Curtis's mom, who realized I forgot to they just left me there. And so she came back, picked me up, and like, Dad came back. They took me back to the party, and I got to have cake. And I was like, okay, so, I'm okay. And all the kids were like, how are you doing? That's insane. And then that night at about 3 a.m, I woke up panicked, crying that I had been left at a park. And my mom called Curtis's mom.
Yeah.
At 3 a.m, and she said, I just want you to know that it's my son just woke up crying, and because he had a dream that he was left in a park. And I just want you to know, we obviously woke up. So every time he wakes up crying from this dream, I'm going to call you and let you know because you made this happen. And she did that. That's my mom in a nutshell. But I used to have a dream then where I would go to the grocery store with my mom, and I always got left there. Oh. And I would see her, I remember looking out the window and seeing the car drive away, and I'm like, great, now I'm gonna have to sleep at the grocery store.
Wow, that's intense.
That was a recurring dream.
That's intense.
Why the grocery store?
I wonder,
it's when you're 5, your world is the grocery store. I mean, there's not many other
that's what I
places.
mean. Everything can be menacing. Even the grocery store can be menacing.
But
It's
I
creepy.
had, around that time, I had fears that were so intense that in my room, I mean, I think the first kind of incarnation of it is I had 2 paintings on my wall.
Uh-huh.
They were black velvet paintings.
Really?
Yeah,
How old are you?
they weren't super high quality paintings.
I would think not.
One was of Charlie Brown and one was of
weird.
Snoopy. And the one of Snoopy was okay because it looked like Snoopy.
Oh no.
But the one of Charlie Brown didn't really look like Charlie
Right,
Brown.
he just like mutant Charlie Brown.
Yeah, and I found that terrifying. So that first thing was like, you got to take the picture of Charlie Brown out of my room, give it to my sister, put that one in her room. She's 3, she won't care. And it's like, I know we're splitting them up, Snoopy and Charlie Brown. But then eventually that was like, okay, now you got to get rid of Snoopy. Now you got to get rid of the desk that's in the corner of my room because it's making weird shadows. And then it turned into a phase where I had to have every single thing out of my room, and I only had a bed.
Everything was empty.
Really?
Just empty.
It was like a cell.
Like
And that was better.
Yeah. and then it started me on a tear, truly a tear of really intense fears. And I think that, you talked about the clown fear.
Did you have that as a child?
I had a clown fear. I think I had a fear of toys and just things that didn't look right.
It's the uncanny thing.
It's like
uncanny.
that thing of Charlie Brown. It didn't
What's
look
that?
like
Yeah,
totally
it's
look
that
like
same
Charlie
uncanny.
Brown. And I loved the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
And I really loved it. And I was a little freaked out, but I was okay at the end with the the guy that comes in. And it was because it's like I could tell it was
Guy in a-
it was like
right, it wasn't real.
electric and
Yeah.
but all of the little Martians that came out
Yeah.
and they were all in shadow.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little unsettling.
Yeah.
I had a book that had about Close Encounters, and it had pictures. You could see what all the other ones looked like.
Weird.
Oh, up close.
But up a little closer, a little bit in more detail, and they were just terrible costumes.
Yeah.
Of like kids in these things,
Right.
but the eyes were sewn on, and that
Did that freak you out more?
really freaked me out.
Right, yeah.
I got very scared
Yeah.
about that.
Yes.
And then it really culminated not that long after that. I was at a drive-in movie theater seeing a double
Always.
bill of Smokey and the Bandit and Hooper.
Oh,
Nice.
classic. Excellent.
Fantastic.
Burt Reynolds,
Yeah.
double whammy.
Yep.
And in between, they showed previews, and I remember watching. They had a preview for a movie called Magic.
Oh,
God.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Hopkins.
with Anthony Hopkins, and it came on. I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, I don't like the way that puppet looks.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm like, oh God, and then I turned around. And my mom, who said, it's okay, you don't have to watch it. It's fine. I'll tell you when it's over. And I did it. I went back. It was over. I didn't look at it again. And I think I woke up again that night thinking about it. And a couple weeks later, I was in my parents' room, watching Barney Miller on a small black and white TV, and I'm just on the bed. They're downstairs, and all of a sudden, it was a commercial, and then Hocus Pocus, and they had the puppet's face. He was talking, and I went, "Hi!" I ran downstairs and was so scared that I saw it, and my dad said, "Well, all right, we'll go up and at least go turn off the TV if you're not going to stay up there." And I'm like, "There's no way I'm going back up there." and so he was mad. I can't calm down. I am crying, and I see a magazine of like Newsweek, and in the corner of Newsweek is a little picture from Close Encounters of just the boy Barry who opened the door, and you could see the orange outside of the lights. And that just triggered me to remember the things in the magazine. And I got so insane that my mom slapped me across, had to slap me
snap out of it.
And then the next day took me to a therapist.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
You were spiraling.
Spiraling.
Yeah.
Because then the other one, there was another movie around that time, a little bit earlier, like a CBS movie of the week called
Somebody knows it.
I remember that.
with Dirk Benedict.
Was it a snake picture? Was it like
about,
a giant?
I think Strother Martin.
Strother Martin?
Howard or something?
So I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's like, yeah, this guy is turning people into snakes. He has a thing with snakes, and this girl whose ex-boyfriend all of a sudden vanished. She goes to like a freak show or something, and then she sees him in a glass box, and he's like, and he's crying, and she's like, "Oh!" And I'm like, this is too much. And I again woke up, and I had to sleep with my parents, and I had.
Did the shrink help at all? Did it do anything?
That's what I think.
I don't know. It lasted a long time.
Really?
Because then it turned into like diseases and like neurofibrosis.
Germs and stuff? Were you like a germaphobe as a child?
Not so much germs, but like deformity, things in the faces,
sure,
things that don't look right.
Yeah.
The puppet didn't look right. There was something.
Yes.
I got very, very scared by this stuff.
There's a kind of therapy that psychologists will do, which is a kind of exposure therapy when you're like afraid like
where you
this.
sort of like,
You just give little doses, but you were so bound up with all these different, like if it's tarantulas or spiders, you can just show somebody a spider across the room for 5 minutes and you come back next week.
Yeah.
But you got a lot going on there.
Well, it's interesting.
Like
the exposure therapy is fascinating because, like, what do you do with the clown phobia if it's exposure therapy?
Yeah,
you lock somebody in a room with like 3 clowns for 8 hours, and you just
One balloon,
you shove them in a clown car, and that's it. They just let them get driven off.
There is something. There
must be
something
some way you deal with
that kind of draws you to it. You know, I would.
Draws you to the thing you're afraid
we had
of.
HBO. Like I loved Close Encounters, but I'm like, I don't want to deal with those things. But like we'd have HBO, and it's like, okay, Magic might be a movie this month, and the guide would show up, and I would always like look to see in the contents. And I would never, like page 13, I'll never turn to that.
Yeah. But you couldn't look away,
But I would always kind of be drawn to it.
Yeah.
But I would never look through it.
You're reminding me of something that I have not thought of in ages because of that weird sort of thing. I Dream of Jeannie. The show I Dream of Jeannie. You ever had that kind of animated, the beginning where she was all kind of like dancing around? She comes out of the bottle and everything. She would get sucked back into the bottle at the end. And she would kind of go, and she would kind of get like sucked into the bottle. It scared the shit out of me when she would get sucked into the bottle. And but I would wait for it every time, just like any second she's gonna get sucked back into the bottle. And it was fucking terrifying to me. But I couldn't not watch it. I had to watch. Also, I loved I Dream of Jeannie. I mean, you know, it was fantastic. But I would wait for that moment because it scared the crap out of me. But I don't know what was scaring me. Because she looked distorted, because she was getting like...
There's an experiment that Darwin did in the monkey house. Follow me on this. He basically brought like a fake snake in a bag, and he would put it in the monkey house in the zoo. And the monkeys are terrified. They would go and they would look, and then they would run away, but then they would slowly all come back and keep looking and then running away. So there is something like you're repulsed by it and afraid, but you're also attracted to it.
That's
it seems to be
fascinating.
part of the.
Do you think it just stems with a desire to conquer our fears?
It might be. Yeah, I don't think anyone knows exactly.
Or
but
is it like releasing something chemical in our brains that we kind of
it's a thrill ride for the brain.
Yeah.
Like it basically releases all this. There's a woman who has no fear in California. They call her SM by her initials, and she has damage to her amygdala. And you can take her to a haunted house, and she gets aroused. Aroused.
Oh,
is the
whoa,
wrong way. Hold on.
whoa.
That's the wrong word. She gets excited,
Or the wrong haunted house.
but she's not afraid. She's excited, but she's not afraid. So there must be something in the brain that like is both drawing you to it and also making you think like this could kill you. Be aware of it, and that it's adaptive, so you survive better. Like this shit can, if you err on the side of fear, you're going to live longer, and so that's may have evolved that way.
She has no fear of anything. Like you just nothing.
Yeah, she would like walk down alleys and get like in all kinds of trouble because she has no sense that this is going to be dangerous.
That's so weird. I'm always like heights. I recently I just went up. I had to go up. We were in Italy and we went up in a tower to go look at the top of it. And my girlfriend was getting freaked out. And I thought, is there anybody who is really completely okay? I mean, it seems like it's a very small number of people who are generally not afraid of heights, because I feel like everybody's a little afraid of them, right? I mean, like, who's okay with sharks, really? Like a small group of people are okay with sharks. It's not like everybody's okay with it. It's strange. How are some people not? I don't get it.
Did you see that movie Free Solo?
No, I haven't, but that's the guy who can climb those fucking
Alex
things.
Honnold has, I thought the most interesting part of that film was when they were looking at the study of his brain.
Yeah.
He's doing things that no one would ever do, and you think it's so terrifying, but the part of his brain that would light up that would give him kind of pleasure or feeling is kind of in these most...
A pleasure from those moments of hanging
the most
there.
treacherous, it's like you feel calm. Or like those guys that do the cave diving, that save those kids.
Yes.
Like those, that they study their brains, and then,
they get a charge from it.
99% of the population would panic in a certain situation is the one part where they actually calm down, where they feel not scared.
It's neurodiversity. I think it's just different kinds of brains. I think that's right.
Well, I'm like the opposite of whatever claustrophobic is. I'm claustrophilic. Like, I like it. I
You like
being,
tight spaces?
Just shut me in the closet, I'm fine. Turn the lights out, I'm good. I'll be in the closet. It's like, I kind of like being in enclosed spaces. It makes me feel comfortable. And it's obviously setting off some kind of, I don't know, is it like being swaddled like as a baby or something?
Do you have one of
like
those
that?
weighted blankets that like make you feel like you're...
I don't have the weighted blankets, but I'd like to get a weighted blanket. If anybody wants to get me a weighted blanket, either one of you guys, for the holidays, that would be nice. If somebody wants to get me a weighted, Paul, if you
Now
ever...
I know. Christmas is right around the corner. Have you ever had to do like a facial cast?
I love it.
You do.
I love it. When you have to get prosthetics made, I'm like, they're just like, they're just slapping that stuff on. They stick straws up your nose, and I get relaxed. I get incredibly relaxed.
So
and I fall
interesting.
asleep.
And most people do not like that.
I know.
I never imagined really myself to be claustrophobic per se, but I got that thing. What they do is they put kind of plaster on your head and you cover your eyes, and it gets heavier and heavier, and you have to stay there for 30 minutes, and you have a straw so you can breathe, and as it kind of compresses,
It warms up. It gets hotter too as it dries.
What movie was this for, you guys?
I had to do it for a movie called The Shape of Things.
Shape of Things.
And so the cast for my face, it was like, I just want to rip it off. I just want to take this off.
And did you like wearing them, or did you not like wearing them?
Well, I mean, they were just like pieces.
Yeah.
So I had no problem with that. But
sometimes.
it isn't putting the pieces on or even wearing that. It's just
The molding.
it's putting the cast on your head.
Yeah. I had to do it for a Planet of the Apes movie.
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes. My whole body was basically done. My feet, my hands, my shoulders, my head, and
You were
stuff.
an orangutan or a...
I was an orangutan, yes. Sadly, I was an orangutan. I really wanted, this is a little Hollywood story here. When they first came to me with this job, I remember my agents were like, do you really want to have your face covered like that? People can't see your face. maybe we should tell them you want to be a human being. And I was like, if you tell these fucking people I want to be a human being in the Planet of the Apes, I'll fire all of you. I was like, who wants to be the human being? Who wants to be Charlton Heston? Nobody wants. Who wants to be the human? But I was supposed to be an albino gorilla, but for some reason that didn't work out, and I had to be an orangutan, which was okay, you know. And they were like, you know, your face actually suits an orangutan more. And I was like, thank you very much. But and it was okay. And I was the comic orangutan, so that was okay. I got to do the but I loved wearing them, actually. I never wanted to take them off. I was like, you know, there's those days you get called in and they put you in all that shit and they don't use you. I was happy as a clam. I didn't give a shit. I just wanted to stay in the stuff. I was like, can I stay in it all the time? But what's interesting is it's kind of exhausting to wear. It's tiring, actually. It's like you feel it on your face and stuff like that.
Well, it's interesting you said the swaddling or the compression.
Yeah.
I just thought of this thing that when I think I was in my like 3rd or 4th grade, I was riding my bike. I went over to my friend's house to see if he was just there to kind of like, if he was around, he wanted to play, and I rode my bike to his house. And he wasn't there, but his little brother, Trayman, was in the
Trayman?
Trayman Stampley. Sam Stampley was gone, but his little brother, Trayman Stampley, who was about this big, was at home. And so I'm like, how's it going, Trayman? He's like, it's good. Like, what are you doing? Nothing? You want to play? Okay. What should we do? He goes, you want to do this? And they had a couch, like a pull-out couch, like a sofa. And he goes, sometimes it's fun to get in and then fold up the couch and then put the couch back in.
No.
You want to do it? And I said, okay. So I got in the bed and he folded it up and he put it in. And I'm like, Ma. and I'm smushed. It's like really hard to breathe. I said, okay, now, okay, take me out now. And he goes, I can't.
Stuck.
Because he was super small. And he goes, I can't, it's too heavy. And I'm like, well,
how old were you?
I was probably in like 3rd grade.
Okay.
Old enough to like know better to get into a sofa bed with only Trayman Stampley in the garage. And so he goes, I go, get somebody. He goes, I'm the only one home. Because it's just me. I'm like, go get a neighbor. So he goes out, he's like trying to knock on doors. Meanwhile, I'm like, there's a little crack of air in the corner, and I'm going,
that's true, could you breathe?
Are they trying to get my mouth to the thing? And I'm in it for like 5 minutes. Trayman's not coming back. He can't find it. And he comes back. He's like, nobody's next door. And now I was starting to realize, like, I don't like this, Trayman.
Yeah, Trayman.
When is your mom? When's your mom? He goes, my mom is home, but she's sleeping.
Oh.
And I said, go wake her up. And he said, she told me not to wake her up.
Oh.
I'm like, Trayman, go wake her up. She's gonna get mad. Like, wake her up. So he goes up, and then I'm waiting there for another 30 seconds, and all of a sudden, whoosh, flew out of the thing, and Trayman's mom opened it and started screaming at him. She goes, I have told you so many times, Trayman, like that apparently he'd done that before. Not to do it. And
unbelievable.
And maybe that started my fear of being close.
Maybe that
I don't
kind
like
of
the
fear.
mask.
Yeah, I wonder if it has that kind of starting point, some of those things like that, if it's just that kind of shit. It's astonishing we're not dead with all the things all the crazy shit that happens. It absolutely is. Absolutely crazy.
No, I remember actually rappelling off the back of a football stadium because in the middle of the night, high as a kite, because my friend said, this is going to be fun. This is going to be awesome.
Rappelling off the back of a football stadium?
Yeah, and I had
Why?
never rappelled before. He's like, just hold the rope here. It'll be fun.
Oh, I know. I had somebody do that to me. I was in college. They were like, we're going to go out with the rock climbing club. You want to come? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I've never climbed anything in my life. I mean, it's like, and so we went out and did this sort of easy little climb. And then easy enough. I was like, okay, I can make it up there like this. And I got to the top, and then they were like, now you got to rappel. Now you have to, and I was like, what does that mean, rappelling? And they're like, you just kind of run the thing up between your legs. I'm like, the rope goes between my legs, And they're like, now you just lean out. And I was like, fuck this. No way. I'm not doing this. And they were like, no, all you have to do is trust yourself. I was like, I do not trust myself.
Yeah.
You don't know me. I don't trust myself at all to let myself down easily. Anyway, they had to kind of tie the thing under me and lower me down, which was humiliating, but much better than me fucking killing myself. But I hate that kind of thing where people just assume you can do something like that.
Well, but we were talking backstage about the childhoods we had were much more dangerous, we think, than kids nowadays. Does that sound right to you guys? Like,
I wonder if it's actually, I mean...
no seatbelts,
No speed bumps? Is that what you said?
No seatbelts.
No seatbelts, that's true. Things just didn't have seatbelts, I don't think.
Yeah, and you wandered around. You were free range, and got into all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
Now, kids, everybody's too afraid. I get it. There's reasons for that. But are parents overly frightened? Are they having a phobia about their kids' safety? Are we overly thinking it? Or, is it a more dangerous time?
Or the way we just even kind of, I don't know, with the whole seatbelt thing, and we would drive in the car, and behind the back seat, we used to call it the shelf. And my sister would sleep on the back seat, and I'd get up on the shelf behind the glass, and I'd just go to sleep. And so if anyone was driving behind us, there's just a kid in the back window of the car in front of them. But it's like, that happened. It's like, if you slam on the brakes, it's like, well,
That's what I know. Totally.
My sister.
The number of times I got catapulted over the front seat because I'd be hanging over the front seat yakking at my mother who's like smoking out the window and driving. And I'm like, and she would hit the brake and I would fucking catapult over the front seat and land down in the footwell. Because, I mean, insane, the shit that would go on. Absolutely insane.
So that clearly, it makes total sense that is dangerous. My parents smoking cigarettes, windows,
smoking,
all rolled up.
And it's all okay, this isn't safe. But then I really wanted to play football, and my mom said, no, you can't, your bones are growing. And I was not allowed to play football. So certainly she was protective in some ways, but in other ways, it wouldn't even cross their mind that might be dangerous.
Well, I lived in China for a while, and I would say this is maybe 10 years ago, and there it felt like, now it's probably different, but 10 years ago it felt like the 1970s here. Everything, there was no sort of government control on any, and this is not a good way to live because you don't know what's in your food, you don't know whether, at that time they were like, is the baby milk safe formula to feed kids? So I get it, we're living in a much better and a safer world, but also my son, he's never been in a fight, and maybe that's good, but I also worry, maybe it's good for your character to sometimes get in a fight when you're little.
Fighting?
Right?
It wasn't good for my character. I fought a lot. I used to fight, which astonishes me when I think about it, that I fought a lot, because I'm such a coward now. I mean, I'm a terrible coward.
I think you'd be a scrapper in a fight. I
was not scrap. I mean, I wouldn't start the fights, but if somebody wanted to fight, I was fine with it.
God, I wish I was you. That's so cool.
I guess it was, but it was like I just wasn't afraid to do that. That's what's weird. I was terrified of bugs, but some things I wasn't afraid of at all. Have you ever had stage fright? Or that performance anxiety when you're acting? Not.
Well, I think that the other recurring dream that I have, that I will still have, which is, I think, almost all actors I've talked to have had, is it's opening night, you're doing a play, and it's like, oh my God, I've never even read the script. I have to memorize the entire play.
Yes.
And I have an hour.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what. And it's gonna happen. I'm going on.
Yeah. Or you get the script and it's huge. It's endless, and you're like,
there's no. How am I going to do this? And so there's that kind of panic.
Yeah.
It's funny. When I think back, I really liked the idea of. Kind of performance, a speech class in school. I thought that sounds fun. I loved watching stand-up comedians, and I thought, that would be so fun.
Yeah.
And so that whole thing about public speaking didn't strike me in the same way that I think it did a lot of people.
A lot of people.
And I've done plays and all that, and it doesn't really bother me, but I do get nervous, obviously, before it first.
That's interesting. I actually don't. If I have to like get up and be like, make a toast, I'm like absolutely frozen with fear if I have to do something like that. Yeah, no, something like that. Get up and make like a little speech at the, you know what, it absolutely scares the hell out of me. But if I have to walk around dressed like an orangutan and get dropped out of a tree and shit like that, I don't have a problem with that. It's very strange, but simple things like that can absolutely terrify me.
That's a universal fear.
What's that?
Public speaking is one of the most frightening things for human beings.
It's a like, general sort of phobia for people?
Spiders, snakes, the dark, and I think public speaking is like
public speaking. Yeah, well, it scares the crap out of me. But stage fright is like a really particular thing that I don't think I've ever experienced because, I mean, I've had that feeling of like nervousness or, oh my God, I don't want to have to do this again. You know, like you have to do a big, crazy, long show and you have to do it twice in the day and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But stage fright is apparently literally you cannot walk out there. Right. You literally cannot stand out there. And that's a really strange thing, and I don't understand what it is either. And some great actors like suffered from it. Laurence Olivier and shit like that. Right. But he couldn't go out there. But you've never had that kind of thing.
I also think it's with him clearly was it probably went in phases where it just kind of kicked in at some point, right? I mean, he didn't have it all the time.
Yeah. It was like didn't it happen like in the middle of his career?
And I think it happened in the middle of something. Yeah. Whereas I always actually kind of found when something went wrong or something, or I went up on a line, it kind of excited me. I got kind of excited that something gone wrong, and it suddenly makes the whole thing feel new again, or something. You know what I mean? It's like it reinvents it. It's funny you said it because I happen to have some research here. I did some research, and you just reminded me with public speaking. I have a list of different phobias here.
Oh, let's hear them.
But there's some of them are really.
Wait, Paul.
But this one is interesting.
Paul, what is your phobia?
Which one? I have my.
Yeah, your personal phobia.
Right now, do I have a phobia of any kind?
Yeah,
I don't really know that Well, I'm not fond of dogs, but I'm not phobic about dogs. I think you're looking at me. Yeah, you're looking at me.
Everyone in there's like,
I know.
Really?
Everybody's going to be like, that's the most un-American thing I could say. I realize, and it's controversial, but I'm not. If there's something I still feel, I'm not phobic about them, but I'm not hugely comfortable around dogs.
Did you ever have an experience as a kid?
I had several experiences as a kid, and I felt like dogs. There were frequently some menacing dog experiences. I remember too when I was a child on the Jersey Shore. I was telling you guys how we went down there. A dog urinated on my leg once, and that was off-putting.
Off-putting.
That put me off dogs for a little while. These kids had a dog. We were over watching like What's Happening or something on TV, and they had this little white dog, and I didn't like how yappy it was. Didn't like the little ones especially. I wasn't terribly fond of. And it just kept jumping up and down on me, and eventually it just released on my leg and just urinated all over my leg. So I'm not terribly fond of dogs, but they make me nervous. Cats don't. I love cats. Again, I couldn't be more un-American right now than saying I prefer cats.
No, there's a lot of cat people here, I'm sure.
Other cat people here? Yeah. If I have anything that feels slightly like that, but I wouldn't call it phobic.
What about rats?
Yes.
Again, I'm like, is anybody good with rats? I mean, I suppose there's some people.
Well, I think there's like some
with
people so they're like, whatever. But then,
but rats is like
I'm really scared of.
Well, I feel like a fear of rats is like you're fucking covered in rats. You know what I mean? Like if you go somewhere and it's like,
who gets covered with rats?
You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's what would really make one rat is gonna not. I'm not gonna be fond of one rat running around.
Like if you're walking down the street,
yeah,
and one just goes right past you.
I mean, it's startling. It's definitely startling. But would I be really afraid of one if you like held one in my face? No. But a whole bunch of them if I'm covered in rats, that's going to be a problem.
You've seen Creepshow? You're in a room with like
Cockroaches, I'm not fond of.
cockroaches are really like people hate them. That was the thing in Creepshow, right? E.G. Marshall. Was
Yes, I think that's right. Cockroaches are disgusting, and I don't like cockroaches. But it's interesting to me. What if I had to in a movie be immersed in a tub of cockroaches? And you know what? I bet I'd be like, yeah, you bet.
I think you would.
I think I would.
It's a weird thing because it's a controlled environment, and you know there's a cockroach wrangler, so you know
there are.
You know,
there are.
you know that it's like these are professional cockroaches.
There are. And what they do to the insects, there's cockroach, there's like, I worked with a butterfly wrangler one time, and a fly wrangler, just flies. But you know what they do?
That's somebody's job.
I know.
A fly
it's hilarious.
wrangler.
You know what they do to them though, and I suppose it's not cruel, but they make them really cold. So they take all the flies and they put them in a little cold thing, so they get kind of dopey, so they can't fly around. And the butterfly was really like trying to fly, but it couldn't really because they kind of made it a little cold, which I don't think is cruel because it'll warm up eventually, but cockroaches, I imagine they probably get a bunch of cockroaches and put them in a freezer and then dump them all over you.
Yeah, like in that movie, they had a lot of cockroaches.
A lot of cockroaches. They definitely did.
Yeah,
but that's interesting.
But I think it's interesting. Yeah, I do think that if
you lose that fear once you. But also, there's a kind of adrenalized thing, and there's this sense of like, yeah, this will be really crazy.
There is something about when it's in a movie and when you.
Yeah.
I know that when we were shooting Anchorman, at the end of Anchorman, there were a bunch of bears in the bear pit, and so we were like, okay, we're going to be working with some bears, and the bear wrangler trainer said, they just had strings along the side. It's just like a string, but to the bear that might be electrified, so they don't cross the strings.
Oh.
And they're very tame. Like these bears had worked in lots of movies, and more than any of us.
Probably.
And I remember the trainer said, like, you guys, they've been in this movie. This is like Channel 10, and this, and it's great. They know exactly. They're not going to cross these lines. They're sweet. They understand camera angles.
Yeah, totally.
And we're all like, okay. And then at the end she goes, however, keep in mind, these are real bears. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, yeah, they are. And so we were working in the bear pit and not thinking much of anything, like, wow, this is cool. They're bears. Like, and they know they work on films. They get it. And there was one moment, and Christina Applegate made a move, and one went, and all the wranglers ran in, and they calmed her down, and all of a sudden, all of us shit ourselves. And then they're like, you're not working with the bears anymore. None of us got in the pit with them. And it was crazy. All of a sudden, what was, this is fun, and nothing became terrifying.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, the situation and the animals they put you in there with. Do you know, this is an interesting fact. If you've ever seen, up until now, and they can CGI them, up until that point, if you ever saw a gorilla in a movie, it was a guy in a suit. It was because you couldn't have a full-grown
They were too dangerous, the gorillas, to have on set?
Way too dangerous. You just can't have a gorilla. And there's a whole subset of stuntmen who are sort of ape actors. They do all this kind of ape acting and stuff like that.
What about chimps? Chimps are also very dangerous.
I had to work with some chimps one time, and you can have the chimp until they're about, I don't know, they can't really, past infancy, you just can't use them because they're nuts. But
what about orangutans?
Well, I was going to tell you, the chimp I did work with a little chimp. It was still terrifying. It still comes up and looks you in the eye, and it's like, it could eat my face right down to the bone if it wanted to. And it's like concrete. It's so strong. It's like, no, we shouldn't have this here at all. Orangutans are interesting. I worked with an orangutan once, and that was the closest thing to something. It was so humanoid. It was so humanoid, and it was so fucking bored. It was just like... And I had to do this thing, putting electrodes on this orangutan. And he would just kind of look at me, and he was really like, and he got really good at knowing when I had to put it on his wrist, and he would kind of be looking at me, and he would just kind of put his wrist out like this. Looking at me like, what are you doing to me? Like, they're so human and really remarkable. They're supposed to be the smartest because
orangutans, yeah.
Because they imitate people's behavior immediately. They see and they like, they see you do something and they do it. I worked with some baboons once. This should give you a measure of the...
wow.
Is there a primate you haven't worked with,
This should give you a measure of the films I've been in. This of the fine motion pictures I've been in. All of the primate films that I've been in. A lot of comedies, because monkeys are funny, Paul. Monkeys are very funny. And so I had to work
primate parts.
yes. I had to work with some baboons once. And they were intense. And they had two of them, a male and a female, and the female was further away because they're scarier. They're actually more violent, and it's bigger. And that thing got loose one day, and the same thing. They were like, that's a wrap for the day, because it was somewhere in the set running around. But the other one, in this film, they had trained this monkey baboon to load and aim a pistol.
Oh my God.
At me. And I remember the first time I was like, that's funny, that's amazing. You trained that baboon to load and aim a fucking pistol at me. I was like, now it knows, and it's not ever going to forget. And if it sees a bunch of bullets and a gun, it's just going to go, oh yeah, I know how to do that. I know how to do that. Where's that guy? Where's that two-bit character actor guy? He's going to come looking for me. Someday he's going to ring my doorbell and just be out there. But I thought, that's insane that you've done that.
Do they retire these chimps like on a farm somewhere, like after?
That's so fucked up, and I think it's true, actually. I do think that these things retire.
You know, like SAG has like a working actors home, like that actors home. It's a very, very poorly funded home for retired
I do,
animals.
unfortunately. Yeah. I think actually it is sort of like, and every now and then you'll read about like Cheetah, the famous monkey in the Tarzan films, has passed away. Because they're somewhere, they're being taken care of somewhere.
I was on a plane once with Lassie.
Really?
I got on a plane once, and Lassie, who was flying first class, sitting on the seat. I was like, what? Whoa! And I was a kid. They're like, it's Lassie. Lassie's on this flight. Lassie. And I got to meet Lassie, and they had a card with a paw print on it. It was an autograph. As Lassie was and so I got it. I was like,
wait a minute. What was this, 1954? What were you like? What were you like, flying Pan Am to like? I mean, where the hell did you see Lassie?
That's exactly.
What the fuck has Lassie been around? What was the last time anybody saw Lassie?
When I realized I'm walking down, and my dad goes like, that's like the 9th Lassie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Those dogs actually freak me out. Again, it's super un-American. Collies really freak me out for some reason. They're so strange looking, and those kind of weird pointy faces. So Lassie makes me
smart
uneasy.
Dogs, collies.
Are they?
I think they are.
My grandparents
According
had a
to
collie,
reports.
and it died, and they had it stuffed and put in the living room.
The whole thing is stuffing the pet is...
It's a thing.
The stuffed pet thing, you wouldn't go that far?
No.
You wouldn't do that? Nobody would do
Didn't
that?
Barbra Streisand clone her dogs?
Come on, really?
Yeah.
Barbra Streisand cloned her dogs.
A while ago, kind of before cloning became really good.
She had an in.
She was like one of the first, I think, right?
That's so crazy. I mean, and are they kind of? Is it really going to be the same dog? It's not really going to be the same.
Well, I think
dog.
it looks exactly the same.
That's so bizarre. I think I'd be all right with stuffing my cat and putting it on the mantelpiece. It's a beautiful cat.
Well, would you clone yourself so that if you had some kind of problem, you could replace your organs with your cloned self's organs?
Would I clone myself? I might clone myself. I think I'd be interested to clone myself.
You mean just for parts?
Yeah, exactly, for parts.
I think I probably would if it would work.
yourself.
Yeah. I think
Would
so.
you really?
Keep it in shape. running around the track.
Well, it's just kind of like hooked up in the back. You have a little room that the clone me sits in, kept in a hyperbaric chamber, so I'm cold.
But wait a minute.
It's like I need a kidney or I need something.
Wait a minute.
Get it out of clone me.
That's what I'm saying.
But your clone has to grow up, right? I mean, it's not like Invasion of Body Snatchers. Your clone just doesn't like come out fully formed and it's you, right? So what's the point to getting the clone?
Oh, would it?
Because what am I going to get, a tiny kidney?
A baby
No.
you? Would you have a baby? You'd have one of your own baby kidneys.
Exactly.
That's
so it's
true.
like
You would have.
I would have to wait for the clone to grow up. What would be the point to that? It wouldn't. That doesn't. There's no point to it.
Wouldn't
It's a stupid
you like
idea,
to-
Steve. It's a stupid idea. Cloning
Okay, all
yourself.
right.
Don't do it, Steve. Don't do
Okay,
it. You have to
fine.
wait years for the
I'm
kid
just
to grow
trying
up.
to share a little wisdom here, but fine.
Hang on. I wanted to just read some of these. I'm going back to this because I did research
did
and
the
I want to
research.
actually.
Don't
But
waste the
when we were
research.
talking about public speaking, it made me think of this, which is hippopotamonsterosesquipedalia phobia.
Holy shit. I can't believe you pronounced it.
Hippopotamonsterosesquipedalia phobia is fear of long words, which I think is essentially fear of public speaking, but it's a fear of long words, which raises the question to me is, who is the guy who thought it would be funny to make the phobia such a long word you can't pronounce it? And I'm like, is that the exposure therapy's right in the word? It's right there. I just thought that was very funny. There's a lot of weird phobias here. Emetophobia is a fear of vomiting, which apparently is very rare. And I don't know whether it's a fear of yourself vomiting or watching other people vomit or something like that. I don't know.
Wow, you're looking at me. You guys are both looking at me in the vomit question.
We just assume you have the answers.
What do you think about ghosts, Paul? Are you? Do you think they're likely? They're real? What's your sense of it?
I try and be. I think that I try and think rational about this. I've been asked this kind of thing before. I think that there's a lot of things we don't understand, and that energy never goes away. So if a person was here, there's still the energy from that person is still here, but I don't. I've never. If you wake up at night and the woman in the Civil War dress comes to the foot of your bed, which has never happened to me, but I've had experiences. I've had some crazy experiences in my life. I really have. I tend to get. I think I tend to veer more scientific.
More
What's the
skeptical.
scientific reasoning behind them? I do think there are many things in the world that we just don't understand and probably won't understand.
That's our whole show, is all the shit we don't understand.
Yeah.
It's all the shit we don't understand.
And
So, but what you're kind of saying is at some level, energy is indestructible at some level. Something always survives. There's something that can't
be. That's true. That's obviously true. But I've had you could write down to the Ouija board thing too. I've had very strange.
You've done the Ouija board thing a lot? Do you?
Not a lot. But I mean, there are certain things that have happened, and there are certain things that happen to me that I just hesitate to go into because it's really crackpotty, weird stuff. But it's like, well, what's the explanation for this?
Yeah.
And I don't understand what the explanation could be. And I don't know if anyone could really describe what that is. I think our brains are powerful. We can conjure and
we were talking about that, about your imagination is vast. People's imaginations are vast.
what our brains are capable of, when it comes to channeling or writing things out on paper.
What you can convince yourself that you actually believe. I mean, it's like you can. We were talking about stage about how malleable people's minds are, how easily people can convince themselves of things or be convinced of things. Is vast, infinite a power to mold people's minds.
Yeah.
I got very serious, Paul. This is the most serious you and I have ever been with each other.
We are chin wagging.
Yeah.
That's it.
Very
Serious
much
chin
so.
wag.
Chinwag is a production of Tree Fort Media and Touchy Feely Films, hosted and executive produced by Paul Giamatti and Stephen Asma. Executive producers for Tree Fort are Kelly Garner and Lisa Ammerman. Dan Carey is executive producer for Touchy Feely. Our series producer is Rachel Whitley Bernstein, with additional producing by Mary Chulenza. Original theme music by Luke Topp, with additional music by Via Mardot. Oscar Guido is our executive in charge of production. Tom Monahan is head of audio for Tree Fort. Our associate producer is Aidan Brooks. Audio production supervision by Jared Brom and Matt Dyson. Editing and mixing by Matt Dyson. Lastly, for more information, go to chinwagpod.fm and find us on Instagram or TikTok at chinwagpod or on Twitter at chinwag_pod.